What is happening, you awesome plane party people? Here we are back at it, a little daytime action presentation, and we are going back, well, not quite to the future, right? No Doc Brown, Marty McFly, no DeLorean, not going at 8 miles per hour. But what we do have here to start off the slideshow is a wonderful, heavy Boeing 767-300, which is no longer in service, right? So that kind of pulls on the heartstrings a little bit, but guess what? It certainly goes a lot faster than 88 miles per hour. So, and it's silver, so it could be our own DeLorean for today. So we are going back to chapter 5. In detail, we are looking at the transfer of radar ID section, right? So today's presentation is named Observe and Report, right? Getting below the surface and exploring those hard to reach spots, right? The back air and the back of the mouth, flossing as you should, of radar ID transfer. So what does that mean? So this presentation has a couple of givens, right? I'm going to take the following assumptions that you know how to do standard point out phraseology, right? You probably learned it at the academy or at your last facility. So that point has probably been driven home pretty darn hard. But what is not is when you coordinate aircraft, right, via point out, and there's traffic, and you have to use the words traffic and traffic observed. So today we're hitting it from both sides. We're going to have examples that have you initiating point out and initiating saying traffic, and same thing with replying to traffic observed and saying traffic observed, right? Because we don't see this too often. Probably about 90% of your point outs done in San Juan Center, you will have no traffic in your way to use the other controller's airspace, right? But sometimes you do. And I would love to have you be prepared and have that dialogue, because it is legit dialogue. It's a conversation between two controllers on the landline of doing it well and not having it be detrimental to your session or your training, session. So as today's aimed, it's aimed at both D sides, so radar associates, and R sides alike. And today we're actually going to introduce a new concept that we're going to have a little bit of keyboard keystrokes on the presentation. So I'm pretty excited about that. I love the micro ears keyboard. It's a wonderful apparatus. So without further ado, let's get to the meat and potatoes. I will see you at the next slide. Okay, let's do it. Okay, so here we are sitting down at a sector, right? We are the sector 8 controller. Well, we're both controllers. We're both sector 8 and sector 6, seeing into the eyes from both of these controllers. So you see we have the micro eArch, the wonderful, colorful micro eArch keyboard there, pulled up over the Borinquen Airport all the way to about the San Juan Airport. Don't worry, it is not in the way of anything that is important. It's just there for the illustrative purposes, which I'm really excited about getting down to. So if you sit down and you do not have too many sessions under your belt, whether it's training sessions or DICEM scenarios in the lab, right? You don't have too many sessions under your belt working this situation, then some things may not be as obvious or clear to you. So let's talk through it together. We have 3 aircraft, right? We have Chasqui 455, flight level 170, Air Sentry 141, flight level 150, and French West 606 descending to flight level 100 out of 17.8 roughly. So my eyes immediately light up to French West 606. They land KTOC. As per LOA, they cross KTOC at flight level 100, right? Perfect. And you see there's only a tiny bit of airspace between the boundary, right, that green line there where French West 606 vector line intersects, and KTOC. That makes French West 606 a perfect candidate for a point out, right? There is no need to transfer both radar identification and communications, only to have French West 606 fly in Sector 8's airspace all of 15 miles and say hello and basically goodbye, right? The best thing about this is this happens in real life. Traffic transitioning San Juan Center's airspace from the northeast, right, from deep ocean, from over the pond, traffic from Europe, which is French West 606 is, right, from Paris Orly, they will arrive over KTOC. It's the fix that best serves their route of flight. So, yeah, so French West 606 is the candidate for a point out, right? So we have Chasqui and we have Air Sentry, right? So the dialogue is only going to take place for us initiating the point out to Sector 8. So as a Sector 6 controller, before I say anything, I need to prepare for coordination, right? Just like the strips when you're a D side and you are preparing the strips for coordination, pre-planning in red, pre-planning frequency changes, traffic information, right? Offsetting it. This is no different. So think of it this way, right? Look at the keyboard. There's some animations coming up. You hit, boom, point out, right? Easy enough. And it populates your message composition area, right? PO. I. And then you can either type in the call sign or what you're probably end up doing since it's easier, clicky boy on the French West 606 target. So basically point out, I, click, and you're winning. Now French West 606 is now populated on Sector 8's scope, right? So whereas I just saw a little Q tag approaching my airspace, now bam, I get the full data block. French West 606, assigned altitude 100, current altitude mode C 178, going 280 knots, heavy Airbus A359. Okay, that's exactly what happens. Now we are ready to coordinate. We prepared our tag for coordination. Now let's get to the coordinating fun part. So I'll see you there. Okay, so like I said, even though we made some assumptions at the beginning, no proper point out phraseology, there's no reason why we can't go over a fun review, right? Point outs are fun. It's the hallmark, the cornerstone of your radar expertise, right? It's that first, the initial step, right? Before you start talking aircraft, you start watching them and seeing what they're doing. So this is actually really, really fun, right? Because it just opens up a higher world, right? You're just at a higher elevation. So here we go. R8, R6, point out. R8, point out. Northeast K talk. French West 606 is safe level 100. Direct K talk. Uh-oh, what do we say, right? Because what's our traffic situation here, right? We have French West 606 leaving 17.8 on their way down the 100, but we have Chasky 455 at 17. Right now, as it stands, these aircraft are not necessarily the most positively separated, right? Now, we can make an assumption, right, or use our institutional knowledge, which we are trying to perfect here, to understand that French West 606, a heavy Airbus A359er, is going to be out of flight level 160 prior to Chasky 455 intersecting flight paths, right? We would even give traffic in this situation if we really wanted to, right, as a radar controller. But now we are having a dialogue between R6 and R8, so now we need to find a phrase that fits to say, hey, R6, French West 606 is point out approved, right? But I have this Chasky 455 that I need you to watch, right? I need you to look at that. And I need you to understand that you need to miss that guy, right? You need to have some kind of separation, positive separation for me to improve that point out, right? So how do we say that using a lot less words and a lot cleaner? Well, the 7110 has guidance, and I will see you there at the bulleted list to go over all of that, okay? Good job. We're doing good. All right, so what to say if only there was a way to reply, right? That's what you're thinking. I have all this stuff that I want to say to R6, like, hey, man, like, listen, I got this Chasky. I have no problem. I know that you're skilled and you understand that you have to be 1,000 feet below them, but I still have to legally, make it sound all polished and correct because everything we say is recorded and we should be trying to conform to proper phraseology anyways, right? That's your goal, right? Okay, so good. So traffic, back to 542 terms, right? That's what it describes. So chapter 5 radar, 4.2 covers the terminology, right? And we are going down to traffic, right? Okay, so here it is. Define a term used to transfer radar identification of an aircraft to another controller, right? Sounds like what we're trying to accomplish here, right? R6 and R8 are involved for the purpose of coordinating separation action. Traffic is normally issued. Perfect. So it describes the situations where you should be replying with traffic, right? And let's look for one that fits. In response to a handoff or point out. Perfect. The first one kind of solves it, right? We are going to give R6 traffic information on Chasky because Chasky is at 17 and French West is not quite at 16 yet. So that kind of suits us. In anticipation of a handoff or point out, right? So if this presentation or this was in reverse and we were being extremely proactive, we would have said, hey, R6, R8, and we would have told them about Chasky in proper phraseology. In conjunction with a request for control of an aircraft, that makes sense as well. So what is traffic and what is not, right? Use your best judgment. Who is traffic for French West and who is not, right? We have 3 aircraft there. And if you're new at this, some would say it's air century traffic. So let's get back to the sector, take a look, talk it through, and yeah, let's keep it going. Okay, so here we are back at the sector, and we can assume Air Century 141 lands San Juan over Maya, Saab 34, flight level 150. They're going to fly green 633 straight up eastbound to Mayagüez, join Route 12 to San Juan. So they are not traffic, right? Don't try to overload the dialogue you are having with R6 with superfluous information, right? They don't need to know about Air Century, right? You'll get better at knowing who's traffic and who isn't as you learn update rates, speeds, aircraft characteristics, altitudes, performance, all that stuff. So don't worry about Air Century. Maybe you were thinking it was, or if you wasn't. If you weren't, well, good job. You're right. They're no factor at all. So here's what you need to do on the other side. This is you as R8, right? You are the approving. You are the receiving controller, right? Boom, back the point out, right? Q, perfect. Clicky clicky on Chasky 455. Perfect, right? You are just saying, hey, you might have seen this I tag creeping up on K-Talk, right? Northwest of K-Talk, creeping up on Amber 636 southeastbound. But guess what? It's somebody. It's Chasky 455. And guess what? Chasky 455 is worth looking at for your French West 606. Hey, Chasky's at 17, level, happy there. And French West 606 is leaving, technically leaving 18, going through 178. So no big deal. But now you are completing the picture and following those instructions as stated in 542. So what's going to be said? Traffic, perfect. Because remember, we're still in this dialogue. Traffic, West K-Talk, Chasky 455, flight level 170 eastbound. Perfect. Well said. Let's keep moving on, okay? We're breaking up in a few slides here. Well, great job. That was wonderful. Now for the response, right? This is a very interesting thing. 542 has all these terms and all these chains of events that are outlined. So this is a bit of a dialogue, right? Even though we're breaking it up over the course of this presentation, which seems a lot longer, it is a labor-intensive process because what are you doing? You are coordinating, but you're also making sure that the controller actually sees the target you're talking about, right? Because nothing is worse than not being prepared for this coordination and having the controller saying, I don't see that guy, right? No display or something or other, right? Because if you don't pull up Chasky or if you don't pull up French West, and everybody, okay, I think I know who you're talking about, and then it becomes more of a hurried conversation than proper phraseology, which we are trying to stray away from, right? We are trying to be prepared, proactive, and ready to receive coordination, okay? So here we are. If you go down the terms again, here we are, traffic observed, right? Finding that phrase that fits. Traffic observed, the term used to inform the controller issuing the traffic restrictions that the traffic is identified and that the restrictions issued are understood and will be complied with. Options on options, right? Okay. So a little real world example here. Chances are you do not have to give those explicit restrictions, right? That controller, they might be training or they might be certified. You are training, but guess what? A certified professional controller, right? A controller who has a lot of stick time understands that guess what? French West has to be at or below 16 reference traffic of Chasky, right? Okay, so no need to say, French West 606 at or below 160 to saying 100 point out approved. No need to do that, right? Save yourself the long-winded reply. They understand radar separation, they understand vertical separation, they understand what you need to make this coordination transit and complete itself. Okay, so good. Let's get back to the sector then with that being said. Good job. All right, so here we are back at the sector again. Let's go over the dialogue, knowing what we know now from the last bulleted list. Traffic, west of K-Talk, Chasky 455, flight level 170 eastbound. Chasky 455, traffic observed. Perfect. And then we would say French West 606, point out approved, right? They said they observed the traffic, right? So that means, hey, guess what? I see your traffic and I will miss it, right? No need for those explicit restrictions that's going to cause this conversation to go a lot longer than it has to, right? It's already long enough if you ask me, right? So traffic west of Katok, Chasky 455, level 170 eastbound. Good. You say, hey, I got this guy, miss him. Chasky 455, traffic observed, aka guess what? I'm going to miss Chasky by more than enough space. Everything is great. And then you go back and finally say, French West 606, point out approved, because you still need to approve it, right? Nowhere in this dialogue, right, your orange lines, right, your orange lines as the R8 controller, have you said anything's approved yet? So you still need to officially put your fancy signature on this and say, hey, point out approved. Okay, so stay with me here. Or, okay, this is a little shorter version, right, but still getting all the proper information in nonetheless. French West 606, point out approved, traffic west of Katok, Chasky 455, flight level 170 eastbound. Sounds good to me, right? You said everything you needed to say instead of going back and forth. First, you approved the point out. Then you referenced traffic, right? Chasky 455, level 170 eastbound. You did it both in one, which is very helpful. And they're going to come back and say Chasky 455, traffic observed. Good. Now the conversation ended with them talking, not you having to go back and say something, okay? So great job with that. That's really good. And you can use both, right? It's a great way to be thorough, quick, and decisive, but you have options, right? If you need to hear, if you like going back and forth saying what they are going to do in succession, then use the first example. But if you want to keep things a little shorter while keeping that content still very potent, still very strong, and still conveying everything that you need to say, well, then use the second option, right? So we're going to get some practice here. So good job with that. All right, let's keep it going. All right, guys, wonderful job with that, right? Nice dialogue, keep it short, sweet, thorough, right? You have a lot more important things, a lot better things to do, let's be honest, to do with your time training in the sector than being tied up on the landline doing point outs, right? This stuff should become second nature. It should be in the back of your mind that prepare yourself, one, to be sure the aircraft are ready to be pointed out, know the basic point out phraseology, which was the initial assumption we made in the first place. But number three, right? I think we're on number three, right? Three, not three, but three. It's important to understand that we have to be prepared to have a quick reply to when we hear traffic, right? Hey, traffic in response to a point out, that means we have to take a look at the situation and we have to make sure that we are ready to apply whatever rule, skill, effort to make sure that we observe that traffic, respect it, separate from it, and carry on, okay? So just do that. Just have that in the back of your mind, okay? So with that being said, let's get a little practice in. Now, it's sometimes hard to formulate situations where not only will a point out take place, right? A point out will take place in our fine en route airspace, but where traffic will be moseying around, where you have to observe it and respect it, and so more often than not, where you will see point outs occur the most is when we are in an entirely split configuration, right? All four sectors of San Juan Center are open, and more often than not, that is when point outs occur because of the little jagged, polygon-shaped sectors that San Juan has. It's a point out frenzy, to be honest with you, especially if you think about it this way. Think of the airway structure. Think of the sector structure. Think of the procedure structure, right? The SIDS, right? I'm talking about the SIDS. And you are already looking at situations where point outs are innate and inherent to the very makeup of the airspace itself, right? So if you ever want to marvel at something, just take a look at the San Juan Center's airspace, realize that each controller is controlling, that slice of the pizza, that slice of the pie, and you look at the airway superimposed against the backdrop of the sector is like, oh darn, they're just built-in point outs. Well, yeah, that's kind of interesting, right? So anyway, just a funny little thought there. So let's get to these scenarios, talk them through, and we'll just have a fantastic time. Told you it was going to be a blast from the past today. That's just not the Boeing 767 we're talking about, but this slide should ring a bell if you watched our overtake situation. And we even talked about this there, right? Point outs, if you're going to vector anybody on the Oconee 3, which we are, remember this FedEx 252 is on 350 heading, they will cross into the boundary of sector 4. So what are we thinking here? Southwest 2366 is making their sailor restriction at 11, leaving 18,000 feet, and FedEx 252 is about to make a turn almost due north, okay? So I'm not going to go back on what I said about superfluous, frivolous responses to point outs with traffic, right, and saying, okay, like should I be doing this? But it's good practice nonetheless, right? Southwest 2366 is going to sailor, and FedEx is about to turn to the almost true north, right? I think it's something that we would want sector 6 to know about as a sector 4 controller, okay? So if you want to pause the video and see what it looks like or practice it yourself, by all means, and I'll just wait a second here. You can pause it now. Okay, so if you did pause it, perfectly enough, we would PVD or point out, right, FedEx 252 on R4 scope, and we would go R4, R6, wait for R4 to reply, R4, point out, FedEx 252, climbing to flight level 340, heading 350 vector traffic, right? Something like that. And we would give them a little bit of time for them to put Southwest 2366 on our scope, so we see them, bright, wonderful, beaming, and they would say traffic. North of Sailor, Southwest 2366, descending to 1000, direct Sailor. And I would say Southwest 2366, traffic observed. And they would come back and say FedEx 252, point out approved. See, perfect. Good job with that. Let's keep it going. This one's just a practice of your point outs here. You can see that Emirates 9933, this is a real life example. Emirates 9933, I'm not sure if that's the exact flight number, but they will leave Aguadilla full fuel, very heavy, full of cargo. And the point out may not see abundantly clear. Who do you think the point out's to? It's not to Sector 6, right? Sector 6 is going to get a handoff on this aircraft. That's for darn sure. We're not trying to bypass Sector 6. What are we trying to bypass? Approaches airspace, right? More often than not, this heavy Boeing 777 is not out of 11,000 feet prior to approaching the lateral and vertical boundary of approaches airspace. So I'm going to pause it and go ahead and practice, right? So pause. Okay, so good. So this one should be easy, right? You're going to hit point out, this time to W, and click on Emirates 9933, slew and enter for proper terminology. And you call R1, R5, R8 point out, R1, R5, point out, east of Aguadilla, Emirates 9913, heavy, climbing to flight level 310 north eastbound. Emirates 9933, heavy, point out approved, right? We use heavy because we are coordinating with an approach control facility about heavy jet operations, right? Just in case if they did have traffic, they can warn that traffic accordingly with wake turbulence and whatnot, okay? So good job with that. This is always a good one, especially when R2 and R8 are split. Sometimes to alleviate the congestion of R2, R8 will take St. Croix landers arriving from the northwest and just keep them on frequency, point them out, and hand them off to approach. You see American 1293 is basically over Ponce. St. Croix is just that little dash, and you see the extended runway center lines for each of the approaches. So you see how this is very prudent, very useful. The only time it ever becomes dicey, and when this phraseology serves its worth, is whenever you have aircraft landing VTOLs in Sector 2, because the VTOL restriction is 1/1000, and guess what? American 1293, or all St. Croix landers, it's pilot's discretion to 1/1000 direct the airport. So you see how these aircraft are kind of inherently in conflict, right? So this would take that dialogue to figure out what we're going to do here, okay? So give it a pause and you can practice. Okay, so if you did pause it, wonderful. I hope you got something out of it. So let's do this first. Let's point out American 1293. So point out, right, to I, click on American 1293, call up R2, R2, R8, point out, R2, R8, point out, over Ponce, American 1293, descending 1/1000, direct St. Croix. And they would come back, put Seaborn 4591 on our scope, and they can say like this, American 1293, point out approved, traffic, Seaborn 4591, descending 1/1000, direct VTOLs. And I would reply if I was R8, Seaborne 4591, traffic observed. So good. So what did that statement just do, right? We did not talk about, hey, are you going to stop Seaborne at 13? Are you going to stop American at 13? Or what are you going to do? Are we going to use vertical here? No, guess what? I said traffic observed, and I already have the permission to use your airspace for the means that I see fit. So I could vector American 1293, I could descend American 1293, reference Seaborne 4591, right? Whatever has to happen, right? Now, if the R8 controller had the plan, well, I'm sorry, if the R2 controller, right, had the plan, if the person working Seaborne 4591 had the plan, they would say in response, when I say point out American 1290, over Ponce, American 1293, saying 1000, direct St. Croix, they'd be like, American 1293, point out approved, traffic, Seaborne 4591, now 5000, direct Vetus. Reference your American 1293's descent, right? You would say something extra right now that gave the peace of mind, gave the R8 controller the grand idea that you have as R2. Guess what? I'm stopping Seaborne 4591 at 15. So the Vetus restriction will come after American 1293 descends out, and usually that's what happens, right? Aircraft will not be in a hurry to climb, be in a hurry to descend over St. Croix landing San Juan over Vetus. They hang it up high for a very long time. So American 1293 does want to get down, right? Because they need to get lined up with the approach, and it's a pilot's discretionary descent. So they're going to want to get down. And at the end, you can always vector, right? Because you have permission to use their airspace, right? Anything can be done with coordination, and the coordination we just talked about, right? Point out, traffic, and traffic observed is how you get that done and how to alleviate any ambiguity, right, in the scenario or in the sector, right, when you go back and do this in real life. So I hope that was a useful example for you. Okay, so here we see a situation that does not occur too often, because more often than not, just about every airport in our airspace is east. But when Aguadilla, right, TJBQ, is on a runway 26 operation, an aircraft arriving Aguadilla from the northwest, utilizing the RNAV GPS runway 26 approach, lie-up transition, they will need an automatic point out to R6. Lie-up lies within the confines of Sector 6's airspace, so this isn't even up for debate. You must point out this arrival into R6. Now the caveat here, right, a possible traffic situations, American 1254 descending to Bino 1000. Now you see direct Bino, and American 1254, a little background information, they're deviating for weather, a little note there, right? So a couple of things to consider, right, factors at play. Is American 1254, do they have carte blanche? Do they have the whole kitchen and the kitchen sink to deviate as far southeast as they need to because of some weather that obviously is not depicted? We don't know that, right? So this could be a situation where American 1254 has to be pointed out to us from R6. That's not really the intention here. It's great practice for both if you want to give both, which is kind of cool. You get to practice point out as an R6 controller and R8 controller and going through traffic and traffic observed. So if you want to try that, pause the video now and I will see you in a second or so. So pause. Okay, so if you did pause it, wonderful. A lot of fun things at play here, right? So let's point out 803 Uniform Victor to R6 and have American 1254 be traffic for November 803 Uniform Victor. Perfect. We point out R or Q, right? Either work, and click, and boom, it populates their display with a full data tag called bar6. R6, R8, point out, R6, point out, northwest, Barinkin, November 803 Uniform Victor, 13,000, saying 4,000 direct lie-up. And they would say, as they simultaneously, type and talk, click, American 1254 populates our scope. I'm like, that aha moment. Okay, good. November 803 Uniform Victor, point out approved, reference traffic, North Aguadilla, American 1254, 1000 direct Bino deviating. And I would say, American 1254, traffic observed, right? I like the short and sweet answer, right? That's a quick dialogue, give your operating initials on and off, and perfect. So great job with that. You know what I mean? You guys, this isn't too bad, but sometimes you just need to see a few examples of what it looks like and what it sounds like to use that, right? It's an abstract concept, especially the way it's written in the 7110. It's not the most descriptive. It's yeah, it just doesn't describe a scenario where we'd use this, but this is where you use it, right? It is a great way for you to constantly reference what you have to approve an action, right? And as we said before, showing traffic and referring to it on the line is enough for the controller to say, hey, guess what? This person showed me the traffic. I see what the traffic situation is. I have to respect it, and I'm going to use all of the tools, right? All the skills, all your powers, right? Little Godfather reference there to make sure that these aircraft are positively separated. Okay, so great job with that today, guys. Really, really good job. Okay, see you at the exit slide. Well, would you look at this actual footage of you, this ball of electricity, right? Plasma and all different kind of phases of matter, and just electrons and neutrons going and a whole bunch of funny stuff. That's you and some random aircraft approaching from the west. You know what I mean? And this is an actual depiction of what happens to you when aircraft approach my boundary without coordination, right? So it's just funny. You are just this wonderful force field of positive energy, even though he's kind of frowning. But let's just say that's like your smile or something, or that's fine. And you are just protecting your airspace, right? That's exactly what you do, right? You separate aircraft from other aircraft. You separate their protected airspaces, right? We talk about that all the time. You're not so much separating aircraft as you are separating aircraft's protected airspace. And guess what? Boundaries are no different. That's why we understand that an aircraft can fly close to the boundary, but guess what? You have a separation minimum to keep aircraft away from the boundary, right? So you're protecting protected airspaces of boundaries and aircrafts alike. Okay, so wonderful job with that. I hope you saw the way we are able to use the 7110, kind of break it down to easy to understand concepts and easy to control scenarios where you're able to use these valuable tools, right, to keep your coordination sweet, thorough, to the point, and simple. So proud of you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the presentation. Always appreciate the time we spend together. So guess what? I would like for you to have a wonderful day, evening, night, morning, or whatever. And remember to keep your attitude just like your separation positive. My name is Steve, and I'll see you at the next lecture.